CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago.
Cutting the cord on cable? Stream CBS 2 News live every day on CBS News Chicago.
Testing, testing. Yeah.
Stream us when you need us. CBS 2 News is always streaming on CBS News Chicago.
Committed to telling your stories. CBS 2.
The latest breaking news, first alert weather, and more streaming on CBS News Chicago.
Keeping you safer, sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather.
Okay, hi guys, sorry. Oh.
CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago.
Cutting the cord on cable? Stream CBS 2 News live every day on CBS News Chicago.
Hi guys. So some people have asked who's going to be speaking. Of course, everyone will introduce themselves, but Ben Crump will be speaking. Steve Levin will be speaking. Lloyd Yates, Lloydyates. He's 26 years old and he's a former player. Margaret Battersby Black with Levin Perconti.
Stream us when you need us.
There are
CBS 2
some
News is
other
always
attorneys
streaming
with
on
Ben
CBS
Crump's
News Chicago.
office who will be
Committed
here.
to
I don't know if they'll
telling
be
your
speaking.
stories.
And then there will be 3 other players who will be here, and I'm not sure of their names, but they will introduce themselves. Yeah, Margaret is Margaret, and then it's Battersby, Battersby, and then Black, Black, and no hyphen. Yeah. I sure can. Good, everybody?
latest breaking news, first alert weather, and more streaming on CBS News Chicago.
Keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather. CBS 2 News streams here. CBS News Chicago.
Cutting the cord on cable? Stream CBS 2 News live every day on CBS News Chicago. Stream us when you need us. CBS 2 News is always streaming on CBS News Chicago.
Committed to telling your stories. CBS 2.
The latest breaking news, first alert weather, and more streaming on CBS News Chicago.
Keeping you safer sooner. CBS 2 First Alert Weather.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We'll start right away. We'll begin with Attorney Ben Crump, and then we'll hear from Steve Levin from Levin and Perconti, and then the former Northwestern football players will introduce themselves, and we'll hear from the team spokesperson, Lloyd Yates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, along with Attorney Steve Levin and Attorney Natalie Jackson, Attorney Margaret Battersby Black, Attorney Richard Banks. We have the honor of representing over 15 young men and women who were college athletes at Northwestern University. And we're here this morning after talking to over 50 former college athletes at Northwestern University and being retained by over 15 young men and women who are former athletes who articulated their experiences while participating at Northwestern University athletic program. It is apparent to us that it is a toxic culture that was rampant in the athletic department at Northwestern University. You're going to hear from Lloyd Yates. You'll hear briefly from Tom Carnifax. You'll hear briefly from Warren Miles. You'll hear briefly from Simba Short, who are all football players at Northwestern University. But this is not just relegated to the football program at Northwestern University. From our conversations with young men and women, this goes into other sports programs in the athletic department at Northwestern University. And what they shared with us was clearly a pattern and practice of a culture that was predicated on physical intimidation, harassment, discrimination, abuse, both mentally and sexually, and it was normalized. It was normalized. And just imagine if you're a 16, 17-year-old kid, as many of the people who we talked to were when they were being recruited, and they were being shown these things. Some of our clients, Attorney Levin and I noted, and it was very important, were minors. They had not yet turned 18 years old when the abuse was inflicted upon them. I mean, you had people holding them down, dry humping them. You had them being forced to participate in activities involving nudity and the touching of one another. You had young women being groped on and being solicited unwarrantedly when they just want to come to college and participate in their sport and get a college degree. And many people ask, well, why didn't they say something? Well, some of them did try to say something, but they were retaliated against. Others suffered in silence because of duress. You can only imagine that many of these young athletes came to Northwestern University hoping to parlay their athletic prowess so they can go to the next level. And so when this hazing and this sexual assault started happening, they were confused, conflicted, and just frightened. They were frightened that if they said anything, would that mean they wouldn't get playing time? Would they lose playing time? They were frightened that would they lose their scholarship if they said anything? And we've heard stories of young people who talked about they were retaliated against by even coaches when they tried to say something. And so this is shocking, deplorable, appalling, but it is not surprising. 2 years ago, our law firm commissioned a survey with a sexual abuse prevention nonprofit organization called Lawrence Kids. And what we found was that college athletes were 2.5 times more likely to have been engaged with a sexually inappropriate contact. We found that 1 of 4 of the former and present college athletes have been approached and assaulted in some manner. We found that overwhelmingly and disproportionately, coaches were the predators who engaged in this sexual assault. We found that 44% of the time, the young people who said they had encountered sexual assault were from a coach. They also said that they knew it was happening to other people as well. And so I applaud these young men for having the courage to come forward to say that we won't suffer in silence any further, and that we're going to try to say something so this won't happen to the next young person who's conflicted and nervous and confused when they're being hazed or they're being forced to haze others, when they're being dry humped, when they're being made to simulate football activities in the nude, when they are being given alcohol even though they're underage. They're coming forward to say that enough is enough, the culture must stop, and we must make a more fair, inviting, and respectful community when these athletes come to try to just do the one thing they love, play their sport, get an education, and try to better their lives. This is a civil rights issue for me because I think these players had the right to be respected and valued and not hazed and intimidated and retaliated. And so in the days and weeks to come, I am certain that others will have the courage after the Lord to tell their story. And I am encouraged by the phone calls that we're been receiving. These phone calls for young people first telling their story and asking, if I come forward, what will happen to me? Well, I want them to know you will be protected and you won't be alone. You won't be alone. So please come forward and help end this toxic culture, because we don't believe it's just at Northwestern. We believe it's at many colleges and universities across America. and it must stop now. Thank you. I'm going to introduce my great co-counsel, Attorney Steve Levin, who I've had the honor of working with on many landmark cases previously to protect the civil rights of our fellow human beings. A great lawyer and an even greater human being, Steve Levin.
Thank you, Ben. We start this case with the fundamental principle that no student athlete should be enrolled in an athletic department conditioned on forced participation in extreme ritualized sexual behavior. That's what happened here. We also start this case with the principle that Northwestern has investigated itself and found that these acts occurred, that they were widespread, and that they were long-standing. Northwestern, in that glimpse of the report that we have seen, the executive summary, drew the conclusion that the staff had significant, that's their words, not ours, significant opportunities, if they didn't actually know, to discover what was happening. And it didn't happen 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It didn't involve 4 or 5 athletes. It involved scores of athletes over a long period of time in a very public forum. Northwestern's own policy and what this school stands for as a university is no type of hazing is allowed. That's their written policy. This went far beyond, if there's such a thing as normal hazing. This was extreme sexual hazing. It has no place in any athletic program anywhere in this country. And I join Ben in applauding our clients because it's hard to appreciate the courage they have to come forward. There are countless reasons why people want to stay quiet about something like this. But they came forward, and they came forward to empower anyone else who is experiencing this behavior today, anyone else who has experienced this behavior in the past, that it's okay to tell your story. It's okay to come forward. And any administrator of any football or other athletic program in this country that is even engaging in this type of behavior better wake up. So I'll just say this. This case has already been proven. It happened. It was degrading, demeaning, and damaging. Now it's up to the school here to determine how they're going to act. Are they going to provide a safe place for these student athletes, now men, to come forward and tell their stories without fear of retaliation? Are they going to make this situation right by the students they recruited with a lot of promises? That is our hope. That is our client's hope. And we're hoping that the school views it the same way. Thank you for coming here.
At this time now, we want to introduce you to Simba Short, Warren Miles, Tom Conifax, and Laura Yates. Simba, Warren, and Tom will speak briefly, and then Laura Yates, who is the spokesperson for the group, will go into detail about his experiences while a student athlete at Northwestern University.
Could they each say their name and spell it when they come out?
Certainly. Come on up all together. Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Warren Miles Long, spelled out how it sounds phonetically, Warren Miles Long. otherwise known as Laren Wong as well. And I played running back at Northwestern University from 2013 to 2018.
Hi, everyone. My name's Simba Short. Simba like the lion, short like not tall. I was recruited as a linebacker. I was part of the Northwestern football program from 2015 to 2016. And I'm here to, in solidarity with and to show support of the people that came before me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Carnifax. It's C-A-R-N-I-F-A-X. I played there from 2016 to 2019. When I showed up in 2017, I was lucky because I was hurt, and a lot of things about the here didn't happen to me off the bat. But if I can do anything to stop any other 16 or 17-year-olds to walk into the same environment I did, that's why I'm here in support, to hopefully, not fix my trauma, but stop trauma recurring in the future.
I thought we were just introducing ourselves first. I'll go a little bit more into my experience. Fortunately, all of us were placed into a culture where, as you've heard, sexual violence and sexual assault was rampant as a hazing practice. Unfortunately for us, we were incoming freshmen, so we had no reference point to know if this was just a college football thing or just a uniquely Northwestern thing. So that's kind of what went into normalizing it for us and leading us not to question it too much. Obviously, in the moment, it was weird, but when you zoom out, like everybody else was doing it. So is this a normal thing? We're also 17. So the reason why the rest of us are coming forward is to strengthen and empower other student athletes who potentially are going through this at this very moment, and to have our story be heard and encourage other people to do the same thing. Thank you.
And now you will hear from Mr. Lloyd Yates, who is going to be the spokesperson for his teammates and tell about his experience, and who is a very courageous young man. And I thank his family and friends for supporting him and speaking up. Lloyd?
Hello, everybody. My name is Lloyd Yates. I was a scholarship quarterback and wide receiver for the Northwestern Wildcats for the 2015, 2016, and 2017 seasons. I graduated early and left the team before my final season. I grew up in Oak Park, and I come from a family of proud Northwestern graduates. My great-grandfather, my father, and my older brother are all Northwestern alumni. Growing up, I attended Northwestern football games and used to watch my brother lead the drum line while imagining how amazing it would be to follow in my family's footsteps and put on that Wildcat jersey. Like the other players involved in this legal action, I was very proud and excited to accept a scholarship and be part of the football program. However, the university and the football program has let us down. That's why we're here today. Upon arrival to campus, we were thrown into a culture where physical, emotional, and sexual abuse was normalized. No teammate I knew liked hazing. We were all victims, no matter what our role was at the time. But the culture was so strong that we felt we had to go with it to survive, to be respected, and to earn the trust within the football program. There was a code of silence that felt insurmountable to break, and speaking up could lead to consequences that affected playing time and could warrant further abuse. Normalizing this culture became a necessity. The abuse of hazing was so entrenched in the Northwestern football culture that even some of our coaches took part in it. The graphic, sexually intense behavior was well known throughout the program. We were physically and emotionally beaten down, and some players have contemplated suicide as a result. The abusive culture was especially devastating for many players of color. My situation was unique. I'm a legacy student, and my parents had the means to send me to Northwestern or any college with or without a football scholarship. But that was not the case for many of my teammates, especially those of color. Many of them were the first in their family to attend college, and this football scholarship was their only ticket to a better life, whether that was pursuing it professionally or getting a great job post-graduation. They were under great stress to fit in and succeed within the Northwestern football program. They had so much at stake and had no voice or power to stop the abuse. So today I'm proud to come forward amongst my brave teammates here today to let the truth be known, a truth that is perpetuated for decades. We hope that with our public efforts that we will empower those affected by physical, emotional, and sexual abuse to share their stories, and we're letting you know that we're in this together and we support you. It's not easy for any of us to come forward. A lot of this stuff is embarrassing, it's painful, and we know that we're making ourselves targets for criticism. But we feel strongly that we must do our part to make sure that this type of behavior ends, not just at Northwestern, but throughout college sports. We are here to support and validate the accusations of the current Northwestern whistleblowers regarding the true abusive nature of the hazing. We do not want any more college students or athletes to endure what we had to endure for so long and repress. Thank you.
Yeah, let's give Lord a round of applause. And I want to thank Laura's parents for standing with him also. At this time, we will take your questions if you have any. Yes, ma'am.
Of the 15 that you mentioned that you have you're representing, how many of those are Northwestern football players? And then of the football players, how far back is the earliest player? Like what year did he enroll?
Yeah, and I'll start, and Attorney Levin can also share in this answer. The majority of them are football players, and as I know, the oldest player goes back to 2013, but there may, as I said, we've talked to over 50 players. Some of them were before 2013, but they are still contemplating being part of the litigation.
In 2013, just to clarify, that's the fall that they came in, or is that the year they started?
Summer.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Have you filed suit, or if not, when?
You know, I have Attorney Levin join me in answering that question. We are talking to a lot of players because we want to make sure that we get everything in there. We don't just want to run out and file a suit for the sake of filing a suit. We have minors who are involved in the injustices. And so there are certain laws in the state of Illinois that give greater protections to minors who were sexually assaulted. And then we have different programs involved, some with coaches participating, some with not. So we're looking at every aspect. Steve, you want to add to that?
We are approaching this in a calm, methodical, detailed manner. We are literally interviewing 20, 30, 50, as many as 100 former athletes. We want to do this right. We want to do this correctly. And we want to make sure that we give the best possible voice to our clients. And this is a breaking story. So every day we find out more details, more horrific tales, more things that are going to be part of a lawsuit. And we don't feel that it would serve any purpose in this time to rush to filing the case. We also hope that we can hear from the university. Maybe since they've already did an investigation and indicted themselves, they will come to us. They will take action. They will create an environment where every single individual who suffered feels free to come forward, free of retaliation. There's certainly grounds for a lawsuit, for multiple lawsuits, for multiple causes of action, but we're taking our time and we're going to get it right.
Steve, what other sports are you
Let
looking
me
at?
say this on to that point. Even as we speak, I was told that we had 3 other former college athletes go on our website and fill out a form saying they want to tell about their experience. And so that's the reason why we're trying to get everybody's story in to fit it with the pattern, because the stories sound eerily similar to one another, whether they were there in 2013 or they were there in 2019. Eerily similar.
It's a remarkable consistency, what our clients and others are telling us with what Northwestern itself discovered, because it was an institutionalized culture of ritualized, among other things, sexual misconduct. It happened year after year after year.
Okay. Yes, sir.
How many other sports are we talking about here? You said 50 players more, they're adding by the minute. How many different programs are you referencing?
Well, we know of at least 3 programs.
Which are what?
Football, baseball, and softball.
Can any of the athletes say that the head coach, they knew he was involved, or detail how he knew that?
I will say this, and I'll see if they have an answer to that question. But from all the football players we've talked to, it seemed that this culture was just rampant throughout the program. So if the coach or coaches didn't know, it would have to be malfeasance. It would have to be they were asleep at the wheel. I mean, you can't have these many players saying we experienced the same things over these number of years, and coaches who have been there for years say, we don't know anything about it. So we, as Attorney Levin and Attorney Jackson, let's discuss, it's the university. It's not an individual coach. It's widespread. It falls at the doorstep of Northwestern University as an institution.
I also find it hard to believe that they were not aware of what was taking place. A lot of coaches took part of it in many different manners, and explicit behavior that was so it was so explicit, it was loud, it took place in close proximity to a lot of the staff, trainers would be located. So it's kind of hard to take a blind eye.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Ben, about the process of reporting these issues, and some of the people you worked with did attempt to.
Yes.
Northwestern has surveys in place, ways to report this. What went wrong there? What happened with those who attempted to report?
Yeah, they were met with hostility and retaliation, and some of the stories are just god-awful. I mean, you have young men and women saying that this happened to me, and they're reporting it to their coaches and the administration, and they're being sandbagged. They are being, being told that, well, it's not as you think it is. It's all in your head. I mean, it was, let's sweep it under the rug. And then when they persisted further, then they were not allowed to play, and some of them end up having to leave the team. You will hear these stories in the days and weeks to come. I do want to applaud the student newspaper, the Daily Northwestern, who has broke this story and continue to try to say we're students too, and we're all in this together, because we all are in this together. We cannot tolerate this type of culture. Yes, ma'am.
How many women are you representing, and do they allege similar behavior and hazing?
Absolutely, some even worse, I think. We represent one young woman, and we've talked to 3 of her teammates now.
You mentioned that you see this as a civil rights issue. Do you anticipate filing a federal lawsuit, a county lawsuit, potentially both?
Yeah, well, Margaret and Natalie, Steve, Richard, and I, we're going to look at every possible avenue to give some measure of justice to these young people, but also to make it a landmark litigation so it can set a precedent where this won't happen in the future at Northwestern or the hundreds of other universities that we believe have experienced similar hazing and sexual retaliation and abuse culture.
And what do you have any thoughts about whether or not these athletes had employee status? This has been discussed, obviously, in the issue of the day. If that would have changed anything about the dynamic that you've experienced?
If they had
Employee status,
You mean like a union?
unionized, right?
I think if they had a union, this would never have happened, because someone would have gone to the union and it would have ended that day.
And we understand one player tried to do a union and actually had a lot of retaliation.
This is separate from what's known publicly about the Northwestern union effort a decade ago.
That's what we understand.
This is a question like directed for the players if they're comfortable answering this. More specifically, Ben, when you mentioned about players taking this to a coach or taking it to a staff and reporting it, if any of you are comfortable talking about that, if you did try to raise this concern and what happened and who you told, I'd love to hear that.
Well, I would say some of the other players who have retained us told those instances where they actually went to staff and their responses. And I must applaud them because a lot of them kept text messages and kept emails from a decade ago that corroborates everything that Attorney Levin said about they knew it was going on. They have admitted that there was wrongdoing. The question now is, what are they going to do about it? I don't know if you
Well,
all...
let me add this, Ben. We invite the university. They've only published a tiny part of their report. They hired a law firm that did a 6-month investigation. We have only had a glimpse of it. It would be very helpful to everyone in this community if we had the entirety of that investigation. Well, what we do know is after the president read it, he believed that staff had significant opportunities, at the very least, to prevent it. When we get all the details, I suspect we'll learn more.
Is there any criminal action that you're encouraging these folks? I mean, this is recent and involves minors, it seems to me, with
Well, involving minors, no statute of limitations. However, you want everybody to do what is appropriate when there's inappropriate activity or if there's illegal activity. You want to encourage people to do the right thing. And that's what we're saying to Northwestern University as an institution. Do the right thing. Leadership matters when it's inconvenient, when it's not in vogue. That's when your leadership and your character should be on full display.
My question is for the players of color. I'm wondering if you feel that you were targeted for your race, and if you could tell us more about your experiences, if you're comfortable.
I think today we're going to confine our discussion to the extreme hazing.
On that point of extreme hazing, Lloyd, can I just ask you your thoughts? First, when Coach Fitzgerald was suspended, not terminated, how did you feel about that, and what do you feel about the remaining coaches remaining with the program? Does that seem sufficient?
I think Northwestern is in possession of that information.
I'm just wondering what your client feels about that series of
Again,
events?
our clients are not directing this lawsuit against a specific individual. Our clients are directing this lawsuit against an institutional culture. I would suggest to you it's Northwestern's job to sort this out. Northwestern is the one who knows what the coaches knew or didn't know. In a 6-month investigation done by a law firm, there's got to be a lot of information. It will all come out in a lawsuit, but they have firsthand information.
Are you aware of this Title IX investigation?
Not aware of a Title IX investigation. I'm sorry?
Do you anticipate naming Coach Fitzgerald or the athletic director, Brad?
I think you're getting into a legal technicality. The gist of our lawsuit is just what we said it is, that this was a long-standing, widespread, institutional culture. And that's what the lawsuit is directing at, and we'll figure out the laws that apply to that. But that's what happened here. And the individuals involved suffered serious emotional and other harm.
Is it safe to say the phase we're in right now is you are building the class? Is that where you're at right now?
Where what we're doing is gathering all the players who want to be heard and have not been heard to come forward, and we will make sure that their voice is acknowledged. And obviously, it's easier when others, like Lloyd, have come forward for the next person to come forward. We have 15 now. I think it makes it that much easier for the next 15 players to come forward. And so we will look at every aspect of everything that you all are asking us about, who the appropriate defendants will be, who the members of the litigation will be, and also if their ages. That's very important here. If they are minors, they're going to be looked at differently in the eyes of the law. So we're trying to make sure we dot every I and cross every T so we can get it right. And we hopefully can have a landmark matter here that will set a precedent where this won't happen at the other Big Ten universities or the ACC or the SEC universities. Everybody can get their house in order and say, you know, we're not just going to say verbally that we don't tolerate hazing. No, we're going to show with action that we don't tolerate hazing.
Do you have a ballpark idea of when a lawsuit will be filed? Shortly, in the reasonable near future. But again, I can't emphasize this point enough. Everyone hears the expression, there's two sides to every story. There is not two sides to this story. There's only one side. The behavior occurred, it was deplorable and demeaning, it was widespread, and there's no way people at the very least should have known. We're at the stage, in my opinion, that what action is Northwestern now going to take towards its former student athletes, and how are they going to make it right for them and for sports as a whole? That's the stage we're at in this case.
For clarification, have you retained players on the softball and baseball team?
Yes.
For the former student athletes that are standing here today, if you could say something to current student athletes across the U.S. who are going through extreme hazing right now, what would you tell them?
Sure. I'd say that I think the hardest part for me, and I think I'm not alone when I say this, is, you know, accepting that you're a victim, right? That's not a part of the culture to really think that way, but it's true, and what we went through is wrong. So I say that we support you. You know, we're here, we're in this together, and we want to make change, right? We don't want this to. We don't want other student athletes to go through this. And I think for me specifically, just talking about my story briefly, right? I've been fortunate enough, I have 100 years of legacy at Northwestern. So Northwestern for me was a big deal, and is a big deal. And I think now, if I had kids in the current climate, the current crisis, I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting and extending that legacy. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but I think to other players in similar positions that we support you, we hear you, and we're here for you.
Lloyd, did you know, Lloyd,
Warren, you want to say something? Tom?
So I think back when we used to play, we didn't have the option to transfer and play right away. So a lot of us didn't want to speak up, knowing we had to sit out a year and possibly pay for a year of school. Where now you have the ability to either speak up or get out and find a new program. And I think a lot of us didn't want to speak up because we knew we had to sit out a year if we transferred. We'd have film to go transfer, that type of stuff. But I think now we have the ability to speak up now, this platform, as well as, or you can just transfer out. But you shouldn't just sit there and take it. I sat there and took it, and now I'm dealing with it 4 years after I graduated, and I don't want someone else to do that. So either speak up or move on to a better program that values you better. I was injured a lot. I had 3 blunt shoulders, knee, ankle, 5 concussions. You know, the coaches maybe believed it was my fault I was hurt, and I brought my self-value down. I did 4 years of therapy while at school, as well as a few after. I'm still dealing with it. It's not going to fix it, but I think this is a little bit of closure. When I heard this ability, this platform to speak up, I took it. You know, I spent the last 4 years hating myself and what I went through here, and this is the opportunity to possibly make a difference. So I'm going to take it.
Thank you, Tom. Simba, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think Lloyd and Tommy definitely covered it. We're here for you. People are here for you. You're not alone. We've all gone through similar situations just in order to play ball. All we wanted to do was play ball, and we were subjected to sort of this culture. And we lived in fear. Don't live in fear. Like Tommy said, I'm dealing with things just the same. Still repercussions from my 1 year in the program. Years and years later. So don't be silent. There's a support system here for you. We hear you, and we love you. So.
Thank you, Simba. Warren, you good? Okay. Yes, sir.
Up until this morning, I hadn't heard much about the softball program. Can you enumerate a little bit more about what you have learned and what those allegations sound like?
Yeah, and I believe you'll learn more in the days and weeks to come about that, but it seems to have been as toxic as the football program. What these young women articulated to Attorney Jackson and I really was deplorable. I mean, these were young girls who were not even of age yet, and they were preyed upon from day one in their words. Yes.
Can any one of the players give us examples of the type of hazing they went through?
I think Lauren already did. You want to do it one more time? It's
Available in the,
briefly. Just briefly. He's already did it.
I mean, it's already public. I mean, it was difficult enough to, go through the interview, so I suggest you read that article.
Right. By players, and then when they try to report, they were retaliated by coaches, and this seems to be the pattern.
Do you have any suggestions for either the attorneys or the players? Any suggestions about state or federal legislation? Obviously, the thing that is largely being considered now is NIL. Where would you rank hazing in that?
Well, I think it's right up there, really. I think about the study that we commissioned, and it talked about athletes being 2.5 times more likely to encounter a sexual contact with an authoritative figure at the university. And, you think about what the student athlete has to endure. This is a trauma that they shouldn't have to deal with. It's already hard enough being on the field and having to face criticisms or being on the court, but now you have to deal with the anxiety of, if I don't let somebody dry hump me, or if I don't give in to somebody sexual advances, then I'm going to have to suffer even more psychological trauma. And so I hope, as we do with all our cases, whether it's, these other civil rights cases, that there would be systemic policy change and legislation and regulations that will say to these young people, we hear you and we're going to do something about it. It's one thing to hear them and say, oh, well, it happened. And even though we say it's important, we don't do anything about it, because now you're doing what they said happened at Northwestern. You're condoning it. No, you must condemn it with your words and, more importantly, with your actions. So hopefully Congress and state legislators will look at these matters.
Let me add something to what Ben said. The university has a very specific anti-hazing policy that we believe has been in place for quite some time. It's not that people don't know this behavior is wrong. It's not that people don't know it's against their own policy. They just chose to disregard it. I ask you to think, what would happen if a fraternity or a sorority hazed on campus? They would be thrown off. What if one student in a dorm hazed another student? They would be expelled. What if an English teacher did this kind of thing? They would be thrown out. Anti-hazing means anti-hazing, and this goes far beyond, if there is such a thing, of normal anti-hazing. This was extreme sexual hazing.
Can you help us understand the why? Who stands to benefit from this type of behavior?
That's a great question. That's when I said there's just not two sides to this story. What we think happened, as often happens in situations like this, is a culture developed and was passed down from class to class, from coach to coach, and they just kept doing it, and no one ever stopped. There is absolutely no other side to this question. No one is arguing that this type of behavior makes you a better athlete.
I have a question for the players and student athletes here today. As you just said, Steve, like, this has been a pervasive culture and it goes through the years. So I wonder, when you guys, you described it, you couldn't really say no when you were freshmen, right? So when you became upperclassmen, did you feel you had to participate in it? And what happened when you became upperclassmen?
We'll deal with that question at a later date.
Yeah, I will say this here, as Attorney Jackson reminded me, the athletes, male athletes, female athletes, their bodies are constantly sexualized. And so you think about the culture that exists in that phenomenon, and you try to understand, even though it's still mind-boggling, but this whole notion of dry humping and making players do stuff in nudity, like center quarterback exchange, while others are laughing and heckling you, and being made to do exercises in the shower in nudity, it says to us that we can't in any way condone this culture, because that leads to even more sexual assault and sexual abuse. And like we said in the study, coaches are disproportionately the predators who assault these young, vulnerable athletes. And so we're trying to speak to the culture on every level. Hopefully that answers your question. We'll take a few more.
Margaret has
Yes,
a
Margaret.
comment.
Hold on.
She'd like to
Attorney Margaret.
So with regard to your question,
Margaret Battersby Black.
sure, Battersby, Black, Black, Margaret Battersby Black. With regard to your question, you all have likely read about the practice of running, whereby players who were going to get ran were forcibly removed from their dorm rooms or forcibly held down in the locker room and dry humped. So in turn, if you didn't do the running, you were going to get ran.
And so many of the players felt forced participation because if they didn't participate, they were going to be the victims. So that addresses your question.
No, but I'll take that back. We've talked to one former cheerleader. Yes, ma'am.
Question for Lloyd specifically. I realize it's painful, would you be willing to talk about what you found most humiliating, most difficult, and what you had to undergo?
So I think all of it was humiliating. I don't think there's anything that trumps anything else. But some of the graphic nature of just, I mean, it's been heard, this concept of running where, you're just, and it's something as an athlete, it's something that we hear about, coming in, we hear about it, we don't know what it looks like, but it's something you say, that's not going to happen to me. That's not, I'm going to fight back, I'm going to do something. I don't play with that kind of stuff. But it's something and when it happens, it's uncontrollable. It's uncontrollable. You're overpowered you're dominated by, the culture. And, on top of and that's, one aspect of it. Of course, there's another aspect of this sexual nature where being, nudity, performing acts while being nude, that, is so normalized in the culture. That's just, coming from high school, that stuff, we never did any of that stuff. That we weren't, that we just thought that this was, part of being, playing college football, playing Big Ten, and we wanted to, be accepted. We wanted to fit in. We wanted to earn trust and respect. And if you went against that, you were an outcast, you were labeled, and it warranted further abuse.
We'll take one or two more questions. Yes, ma'am. Tom can, and I'll answer after Tom and the players.
So I talked to my dad while I was there. Obviously, I told him I hated it from year one, freshman, sophomore, the whole way through, and he never understood. And I said I wasn't good enough. I blame myself for a lot of it. I'm not good enough. There's a reason why I'm not playing, because I was believed by the coaches that I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy because I'm hurt. And I told him that as my way of showing the trauma, and he never believed me. He get angry at me when this came out. The first thing he said was, "I'm sorry." So it's hard to explain to you guys what we went through. We know because we saw it for 4 years straight. The words we have to tell you and best describe it is not even touching a fraction of it. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
What is the culpability, you think, of Jim Phillips as athletic director, I suppose, during all of your tenure there?
Before I answer that, I want to answer a question as well. It is a lot of the students' first time telling people outside of their circle. Who's their circle, I don't know. Some involve their parents, some involve their closest friends. But I know people broke down crying on the phone when we talked to them about how mad this made them and how they blame themselves now for not having the courage to talk, how they were just dumb to let people do that to them. And, it's like Tom said, you end up blaming yourself, but you were the victim, but it's psychological, and that's the psychological trauma that comes with hazing and physical intimidation and retaliation, and certainly sexual, abuse. You end up blaming yourself.
To add further to your question, many of the players that I've interviewed felt manipulated into believing that it wasn't wrong until the Daily Northwestern and the whistleblower came forward, and we applaud them for doing it.
Thank you for that, Margaret, because, our team, Natalie, Margaret, Steve, Richard, we literally for the last 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, have talked to players, and I know specifically some of the women asked Natalie that they wanted to talk to me, and for me to assure them that, you know, this would be taken serious if they did come forward, because like I said, they said they tried to come forward before and nothing happened. They felt that it got even worse after they came forward. Last question. I haven't had any current players call us yet that I am aware of. Gigi, I'm sorry.
One question from Zoom from a reporter. For the former players, Northwestern wants to build a new $800 million football stadium. Should that be put on hold until the hazing case is resolved? And even more, should NU drop football?
That's maybe beyond our
Yeah.
pay grade. Northwestern needs to act on this situation, take action, make a safe place for the players to share their experiences, and make sure it never happens anywhere again. It is a correctable situation on a go-forward basis, but they also have to respect what their student athletes went through.
Yeah. And we, as Steve said, you asked Northwestern to act. As Dr. King said, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. Northwestern, you can be the example here. You can be the example. Thank you.
Thank you.